start talking. Move over a little bit. All right, you good. All right, you can start talking. Just start talking.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Yvette Carnell from Breaking Brown. What's going on, Breaking Brown fam? I know I haven't seen you all in a while. I'm here with Antonio Moore at Tone Talks, and we got a lot to talk about real quick. So let's start at the beginning, Antonio.
Yeah, we here in Louisville. Thank you to Dr. Cosby for flying us out here, fighting for U.S. reparations, fighting for you. We're definitely trying to push the discussion forward about what's going on with black folk in America, how we all can dialogue around U.S. reparations and American slavery, and how we need to be better for ourselves. What do you have to say, Vin?
Yeah, I think part of the thing that I learned today is that there's a different kind of conversation that has to be had. Everybody knows that I like to frame everything, and so one of the things that we try to frame is like, how does that, when we talk about reparations, what does that mean for white people? And what does that mean in terms of what white people have to say to other white people? And one of the things it means is that you have to get honest. We've had a life of people just dealing with propaganda and living in Rush Limbaugh land, right? Where we don't have to be honest, where you can believe that the stuff that happens to black people is because black people don't do enough do for self. And what Antonio and I are trying to impart is that no. This comes all the way from chattel slavery. This comes from Jim Crow. This comes from redlining. This comes from Reconstruction. This comes from segregated schools that are now being resegregated. That's where all this stuff comes from. So that's what we're trying to impart right now. And that's where we are. And we're trying to do the heavy lifting. We're trying to do the work. So I think that's what's required of us. And that's why we're here.
And let me say this. This man, Dr. Cosby, make sure you go Google his speech at Muhammad Ali's funeral. I mean, what he's doing out here is moving, to say the least. I mean, he has a church, football field, employing black people. I mean, he's the #1 per capita employer of black people in Louisville. Do you understand what that means? And so to be part of him, but then you start to see the consequence of not having a robust affirmative action.
Yep.
Of not having what Lyndon Johnson set up in the mid 60s, late 70s, early 70s for black folks. Essentially, he has the vision, he has some of the resources, but he doesn't have the distribution to really make it grow, to bring businesses in that employ black folk, to continue the growth of employing black folk. I commend him and St. Stephen's Church, correct?
Yes.
And Simmons College. We went to a great service yesterday
it was wonderful.
Where he preached about the instead, which is essentially, sometimes God closes the door and has something else instead for you. And so what I wanted to get into today, getting right into it, is we here to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about the Houston Texans owner and the Inmates comment. I know you guys wanted to hear both of our opinion on that. And then we're also going to talk about Trump's tax reform. We're not going to go too long, maybe 25 minutes, 20 minutes. We see your comments as you comment. We're now on Yvette's new Mevo. Thank you to Dr. Cosby for that and all of his supporters, because that's how this was made possible. Yvette will be able to go live much more often for you guys, so we can get our show back going. And as you know, you can catch my show Fridays at 7 p.m. Pacific time on my channel, Tone Talks. So the Houston Texans owner comes out in a meeting and essentially calls his players and other NFL players, we can't have the inmates running the jail. Now, essentially, he tried to roll that back with an apology. The players were infuriated. Players essentially did some kind of kneeling protest. Majority of the players kneeled this past Sunday, for whatever that's worth. Here we are in an America that's honestly saying what it is from the beginning. And I think what's interesting is, I wanted to share this with you, Yvette. I want to read this thing about the Houston's owner, McNair, Robert McNair. According to one tally, McNair was Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's largest donor from the period of January 1st, 2009 to September 30th, 2015, contributing $1.5 million. McNair also donated to several Republican candidates. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's what politics is. Politics is the ability to buy your politicians in this in a capitalist society, right? It's the ability when you frame it to purchase. Okay, I need this politician to do X, Y, and Z for me. So what does that mean though when you don't have the money? When you don't have the money to buy your politicians, but the Texans, the guy who owns this Houston team, he has the money to buy his politicians. And nobody ever delves into who these people are because they thrive on anonymity. So he can go around and donate and donate and donate. We know who Colin Kaepernick is. We know who all the football players is. We know everything they've ever done wrong. We know every infraction. But we have no idea who this guy is until he comes out and compares the football players to inmates. Up until that time, we know nothing. And so what I would really say about that is, I think that's just an example when we talk about being locked out of America. What we're talking about is you don't have the money to go and do what he did. You don't even have the money to go and research him and find out that he did what he did. That's locked out. You don't even have he gets to be what he is. You don't even have the money to know who he is and know what he does.
When we say we want to protest the NFL, we have no idea. No. These are separate companies. No. Every team is a separate company. And we have no idea who owns these separate companies. So isn't it ironic, and I guess I'll bounce this off of you, that you had Colin Kaepernick, and I made this point on my show, kneel about what? Incarceration. Yeah. Black brutality, brutality of black men, but incarceration. And now you have this owner make a reference of inmates and try to just say it was a slip of the tongue. Yeah. It was no slip of the tongue. I mean, because the other thing is he's a large donor to Donald Trump. Yeah. And you have this private prison movement around Donald Trump, the reinvestment in private prisons. Isn't it ironic that you have a guy who's invested in the idea of Republicans and private prisons make the inmate comment with the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's a moment of honesty. That's who you are. Like, understand, one of the things we have to do is understand who you are to these people. You are an inmate. You go out here and you crash into another, probably black man's body, sometimes white, but a black man's body, and you get CTE, okay? That's how they think of you. Like what we think, part of the problem here is that we have no access to wealth, right? For the most part, we have no access to wealth. So we don't know that we thinking this person has a lot of money. He has a little bit of money over like 4 or 5 years most of the time, maybe 6. He has no real money.
Who's this person?
The linebacker, the running back, the wide receiver whose hands are broken. He don't have no money. So what he's saying is that you really are the inmates. You don't get to, with this little bit of money we get you to do, and we make a lot of money on, you don't get to do anything with that. You don't get to go and run the prison. You're the inmate. Understand who you are in the context of this conversation.
And understand this isn't isolated. No. Gene Upshaw, before he passed, talked to a major newspaper, and this is a direct quote from Gene Upshaw about a meeting he had with Tex Schramm, who at that time was the Dallas Cowboys president. And what he said is, Tex Schramm said this about the players: you guys are cattle, and we're the ranchers. And ranchers can always get more cattle. Yeah. Is that too far off of what the Texas owner said?
No. You can always get more. You can always find a young black man who wants to make a bunch of money, wants to be an NFL player. I can get more of you. This is not a problem for me. I can get rid of you and find another boy who's desperate, because we haven't fixed the systemic problems that come all the way from slavery, that come from Jim Crow. We haven't fixed those problems. So we got a lot of young, desperate African-American men. I can go get more of you, but you can't find nobody else willing to pay you this kind of money. So what you gonna do?
I want you guys to go Google. I did a piece for Vice Sports 2 years ago, Football's War on the Minds of Black Men. In that, you can get a grasp on that 70% of the NFL is black, that most of the professions that aren't as high impact, which is quarterback and kicker, are dominated by whites. What you get a visual of is that black young men are risking their bodies in a dangerous sport to try to support their families because there aren't other avenues. What we get is a reality that there is a war, and we can't care about black lives if we don't care about black bodies. And in so many instances, what ends up happening is that we recreate the narrative behind football because we all love to see somebody get tackled to the ground. I always pose this question, and I'll pose it to you guys, man and woman. When's the last time you tackled somebody to the ground or were tackled to the ground?
Third grade.
Um, uh, might have been around fifth for me. Might have been around fifth. That's a lot of years ago.
That's a lot of years ago, and I would never do it now. I would never do it now.
Decades.
Yeah.
So I can give you $10,000 and you would just tackle me.
You didn't play football?
Never.
$10,000? No, I'm not tackling nobody for $10,000. That's not enough money.
Okay. Well, let's move this on. We have big news today. They done went and grabbed Manafort.
Oh, Trump's in trouble.
Trump's in trouble. But we also have, for us as African Americans, a pretty interesting and powerful reality around us. We talk about economic genocide as Byron Allen posed it. We talk about black people not having wealth. Well, what's up with these tax reforms? I did a video on it, and what I showed you guys is that this stuff is real. Tax reforms and budget cuts. What's going to happen to black folk if given what we're seeing with this budget and tax reform?
Well, we're doing this off the cuff, but what we showed, like that was a show that we did, and I think you did a show as well, where Trump is zeroing out all of this stuff that we got that made black life kind of possible. See, part of the problem with black life is that we don't understand how much of our life was made possible by government. We don't understand whether you're HUD, whether it's Section 8, whether it's child tax credit, whether it's earned income tax credit. We're not understanding how much money, revenue, we talked about dairy, we talked about income flows, how much of that income flow comes from the government, right? And what Trump is kind of proposing is to zero that out.
Let's make that visual. SEOG grants give $4,000 to low-income kids. Mm-hmm. Most of our kids that go to college, whether we want to acknowledge it, are considered low income. He's talking about cutting that whole SEOG out. So many black kids might have to go home. So many. And I don't think we understand these schools, whether small or large, don't have another $4,000 for your kid. Do you have another $4,000? And that's just one cut. That's not dealing with some of the other things that we see. I showed how this, you can check on my Facebook, great article. I actually detailed it in my page, how his tax reform deeply affects single mothers. And I don't think that we understand how real this is until it's right on our doorstep. I mean, what happens? What happens if these go into effect and we're not ready? Yvette?
There's no money. Like, there's no money. Like, there was a great, I told you I was doing some stuff earlier today. I told a great story, right? Even when you look at economics, you look at segregation, desegregation of schools. I think that's a great prism to look through in terms of kind of where we're headed. And what you had was white people saying, you can't come to my school. I'm not racist, but... Isn't that the story of American life? I'm not racist, but where are the metal detectors? I'm not racist, but where are the drug sniffing dogs? I'm not racist, but. So the thing to understand is that they're not going to save you, and they're not going to provide us with the information that we need. So what happens is you go to file your tax return and you don't get EIC. You don't get child tax credit. And the thing is, because we're not even educated in terms of political education, you didn't even know it was coming. You didn't even know that was coming for yourself. So I'm just going to tell a quick story. Michael Brown. We all talk about Michael Brown. I just want to have people to understand context.
Tell it long.
We understand that story. Tell it long. Let's understand context. Michael Brown went to Normandy. That was a school. Failing school. That was a school that failed for 15 years in a row. Understand what that means. That means from K through 12, you had people who were just at a failing school the entire time. So what happened is eventually when the school failed finally, and just like they said, you all can go to a white school. And the white people said, no. You're not bringing your kids here. I like black people, but. And so 1,000 kids came. And the school said, well, we're going to change the name of the school. And this is a new school. It's not a failing school. So y'all got to come back to this school. And there was a whole lot of rigmarole. But understand what that means. Understand that there was never an intention for black kids to be educated along the lines of white kids. There was never an intention for black kids to be competitive with white kids. It's one thing for you to clean their homes or do some other job, but there was never an intention for us to be in competition with white kids, and that's what's still happening. What we don't understand is there is an intention behind all of it. This isn't just some kind of racism that just kind of happens. It's happenstance. This is intentional, what we're dealing with.
Let me say this, because I'm reading the comments, and I'm seeing some I'm going to say some ignorance about government. We are locked out without government. I think we have an idea of our own agency that isn't supported by the data. New data came out since Yvette's last show. I've covered it on Minds. The 2016 survey of consumer finances from the Federal Reserve came out. One of the best economists in the whole area, Matt Brunig, did an article with me. He sent me my own data from the backside of it all. And that data isn't pretty, I'll tell you right now. I did an animated video. You can go check it out on my channel. The middle black family is equivalent in wealth to the 20th percentile white family. In terms of worth, black middle is equivalent to white poor.
Say that again.
In terms of worth, meaning worth and wealth, black middle is equivalent to white poor.
And these are the people who built the country with free labor we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. And so what I'm seeing is people are looking at the data and trying to contextualize that against the prior number of 1,700. So what essentially I asked Matt to do for me, so I can share it with you, is give me the data without the family card, because they were running around trying to give us this $16,600 number. It's not right. Understand that we're still in the same spot. So if you take out the family card, with the family card, the middle black family is worth $16,600. The middle white family is $162,000. But the rub is the car should have never been in there. 3/4 of that $16,600, 3/4 of that is basically car, which isn't a real asset when you talk about asset valuation. So if you take out the family car, just the car, because there's other durable goods like your clothes and your TV and your couch that shouldn't be in there too. But just taking out the car, we go from $16,600 to $4,000. White folks don't do that until their 20th percentile. We're doing it at our 50th. Their 50th goes from 162 to 140. Now, essentially, the reason why I say that it's about the same is that's just without the car. So 44 less the couch and the TV and the clothes, we back to 1,700, just about. Understand that you can't live here without wealth. And the key thing that we need to do is demand more access to wealth.
Yes.
The keys to access to wealth is government. That's just what it is. Unless maybe your family owns a cornfield, and I'm not talking about 2 or 3 acres right now. Unless your family owns an oil mine, and I'm not talking about, they got some buckets of oil. Unless your family owns a farm with a contract with McDonald's, which I know it doesn't exist.
No.
We think of ourselves in a context that has never happened, that we need to leave government alone. You know, one thing that we did a video earlier, because we had a great presentation today to a powerful group here in Louisville. Thank you again, Dr. Cosby. And in it, what they showed is that while the normal family, go Google the documentary, The Most Unequal Place in America. It talks about a Lake Providence in Louisiana. And what it shows on one side of the lake are the black folks, and I think the median income was like $12,000, something low. On the other side is the median income is $600,000. But what they showed is that while those black families are getting about $1,500 in welfare, the white families are getting nearly $50,000 in subsidies, $100,000 in subsidies. Everybody uses government. We've equated government to white folk.
And we think that because we use government, we're getting a handout. What we don't understand and what we need to understand is everybody, and we played this before. Dr. King said this. When the Homestead Act, everybody who's gotten money has gotten it from government. When we talk about government contracts and we talk about being in this country, we have been beholden to a kleptocracy. Well, what do you mean about a kleptocracy? Go and Google the Gullah people and how they have had their land stolen. There has been nothing to protect us from having our land stolen. There was a great article about a saloon owner who was black and who was dragged out of his saloon and hanged because he was just being successful. There is a correlation between being a successful black person and lynchings. And that's why when people bring black capitalism to me, I say, let me tell you something. That's been tried and white people came and stole it. That's just what it was. Mm-hmm. That's just what happened to us. So you have to say, one of the things that cannot happen is you cannot look at that and say that we are, as African Americans, getting a handout. Since when? Since how? We're not getting a handout. When you see people go to Capitol Hill, all these lobbyists, it's all because they have all the money. All the money. Everybody goes to Capitol Hill to get the money. The only thing that we're saying is we want money too. That's not a handout.
We want access.
We want money and access. And not only equality, we need an advantage. Because if you do just class-based economics and say a certain class moves up. So say our bottom class moves up with the poorest of the poor whites. When they get up there, they're going to say, you know what? We don't want to be around black people anymore. We want to go over here. Mm-hmm. We need an advantage over that. And that's what we're saying. Priority. Where is our advantage? Where is our priority? Where is the DOS card that I can pop that on the table and be like, I'm DOS. I get first priority for this
contracts?
job.
Where are our contracts? Where are our access to jobs? Where is our loophole? And the thing is, we don't understand that white America has a loophole as a group. Again, I also showed in this new data that just came out maybe a month ago that 15% of white families, 15% of 83 million white families are worth $1 million or more. Understand that means that 13 million white families are worth over $1 million. Only 380,000 black families, almost all boomers, are worth more than $1 million. Understand that of the 13 million white families that are worth more than $1 million, 1 million of those are worth more than $10 million. They have 3 times as many families worth $10 million that we have worth 1. I think that we have to understand the context of what's going on. I mean, we dream big. Everybody can be president and go to Harvard. But we have no resources.
But do we understand that Obama was a legacy?
Oh, no, we don't.
Do we understand he was legacy?
And like from East Africa.
But remember that Ta-Nehisi Coates quote you told me about, right?
Yes.
Well, he said Obama's Malia will be, what did he say? First generation?
Yeah. Ta-Nehisi Coates in his reparations piece misunderstood Obama and the reality of his position. And he basically tried to say that Malia and Sasha were one generation removed from struggle. But what he didn't deal with is that Obama is third. The grandma had money. The mom went to college. And then Obama, on the
and
dad's
his dad
side,
went to Harvard.
Dad went to Harvard, so you can check legacy. We gotta frame people and be honest about what they are.
And isn't Malia going to Harvard?
Oh yeah.
So we talking third generation Harvard. How many of you are third generation Harvard?
Well, for what I wanted to do is just give Yvette a chance to do her show, support her. I don't know if Yvette wanted to say something else about what she has planned going forward and to answer the project.
I think in terms of, I mean, I'm grateful. I'm just really grateful for the Angela Project. And I'm grateful for what Dr. Cosby has allowed us to do here to make the case for reparations and to use this as a place to kind of catapult what we're doing. Because we are invested in the African American community, and we are invested in making the case for reparations, whether you think it's easy or not. I'm sure there was a time when there was a black person hanging from a tree, and somebody said they're never gonna give us anything, we never gonna have nothing, and now we're still here. So what that means to me in terms of responsibility is that my responsibility is to still be fighting. and to still be fighting for the African American community. And I'm happy to have people in this with me, Antonio, Dr. Cosby, and his whole staff, his whole crew, who are trying to get us to understand how we got here, how we are remaining here, and what we have to do and what we have to advocate for. And I think a lot of people are kind of saying, well, Yvette, you're kind of rough around the edges. Well, here's the thing. Martin Luther King was the sweetest man. He was humble. He was kind. And he got a bullet. And so what I'm saying is that I need this right here. We're being replaced. We're being replaced, at the top by new Africans. We've been at the place at the bottom by a lot of immigrants. And this has to happen now. So I think, that's kind of why Antonio and I are here. That's why we're advocating. And that's why we're working really hard to do this. And I just wanted to come to you real quick to kind of give you a synopsis to kind of understand what's been going on. I know I've been missing, but this is kind of where we are.
Thank you so much for your time. ToneTalks.org to subscribe and donate.
And you can still subscribe at breakingbrown.com, or you can go to donatebrown.com to donate to what we're doing. You can also go to breakingbrown.com to donate $2 a month to the newsletter. And we got to support our people. That's what we are.
Thank you.